Central Bank issued a report on the SMEs yesterday, and it made for very stark reading indeed. And it tells a story of less money coming in and of 39% of firms with invoices going unpaid and small businesses struggling to get banks to lend to them. And invoices going unpaid has a knock-on effect on the whole of the supply chain, and I think we really need to be conscious of that. So whether that is a small food supplier or a self-employed person or whatever else it may be, the multiplier, the negative multiplier effect in that sense, I think is something that we really need to watch out for, because there will be businesses going under the radar that will be collapsing. This has meant that staff being let go and deferred payments, or businesses being forced to close down altogether. And I'm glad to see that this common sense bill and a willingness by the government to adopt the Sinn Féin recommendations. But I would strongly urge the Minister to look at the rest of the proposals from Sinn Féin as well. The bill improves the credit guarantee scheme, but we need to do far more. And this doesn't get away from the fact that really what's needed is an injection of cash in terms of grant aid, and we've said that, and that's what we've done in the north in terms of supplying grants for small businesses. But we know that small businesses are struggling right across this country, and one sector, as an example, through that are the coach and tourism operators, as was mentioned by my colleague Deputy Stanley. They have been extremely hard hit. I've been in contact with some of them in my constituency, and despite how hard their businesses have been hit, they are very clear. They can stay in business only if there's genuine support for them. They are watching with interest the activities of the Dáil and hoping that no one in government is asleep at the wheel. They agreed with Sinn Féin's assessment of the credit guarantee scheme. They knew straight away that it was designed wrong, that would mean higher interest rates, and that would be of little interest to smaller businesses like them. The amendment is a small step in the right direction towards supporting industries like the coach tourism sector and many others, but again, more needs to be done. The country cannot function without a proper transport system that serves all of the areas, no matter how remote they are. So these are people who have invested heavily, who already have, who are already carrying debt, and who really cannot carry any more, particularly high interest rates. A lot has been said about the opening of the so-called wet pubs. Regardless of the rights and wrongs of this, they have been asked to stay closed by the government for the safety of everyone, like many other businesses. They need to know the government is doing all that they can to put the necessary supports in place. So they cannot just make these decisions in isolation. They have to ensure that these businesses that are very viable but are very vulnerable at the same time are supported to continue, including working with the opposition and listening to our ideas and not dismissing them out of hand for political reasons. The accommodation and food sector across the board have experienced an extreme shock. The Central Bank in the report again states that 77% of report turnover of more than 75% below normal. And again here we have to look at the supply chains, such as the dry cleaners and the laundrettes, where 60 to 80% of their income comes from the hospitality sector. And that's why I think it's really important that they are considered and that they need to be aligned with the hospitality sector as well, so that we can keep these businesses up and running. The bill increases the portfolio cap to 80% from the government's COVID-19 credit guarantee scheme, and that I welcome, although I do think it should be higher, as we have suggested. Without this being removed, banks would refuse to lend to small businesses in dire need of affordable loans. We are proposing the capping, as was said, of the interest rates, because they talk about low interest rates. We need that to be a ceiling of 2.5% in that situation, because the loans that have been put forward here to date just have the interest rates are too high. The issue was flagged by Sinn Féin shortly after the loan scheme was announced back in May, and that was communicated to the Minister for Finance and the Minister for Business. I know one of my contributions, my earliest contribution, I think, here in the Dáil was around the interest rates and was around the amount of money that the banks would be making on the back of these struggling businesses. But it was laid out why loans would be unattractive to smaller businesses, and today we see one of these issues being addressed. I would urge the government to look at the others that Sinn Féin have highlighted as a matter of urgency. Just in terms of loans, businesses need as well, they need a minimum of 12-month window guarantee before they make repayments and guaranteed low interest payments. We don't know, there's so much uncertainty into the future. We look at the vaccine situation evolving, and hopefully we will have a vaccine sooner rather than later, but we will not get back to a normality where these businesses can trade until we have a vaccine in place, and I think that needs to reflect in terms of what the government are putting in place. As I said, these are vulnerable but viable businesses who we depend on very much for employment, and we depend on it to have those businesses in our communities to have prosperous and viable communities as well, particularly in rural Ireland. So I welcome this bill, but there's much more that needs to be done, and I think simplicity and urgency are the key words in terms of getting the money to the right places at the right time.